What's going on, everyone? So, a Bleacher Report writer thinks that Victor Wembanyama has a chance at a triple crown next season. Wemby is poised to collect maximum hardware. We're talking MVP considerations, likely an All-NBA status, and a Defensive Player of the Year award. Now, I thought that this was a really good talking point, and I want to kind of break this down, go over my thoughts and opinions, and of course, I want to hear yours down in the comments below. Do you think that Wemby can win the Defensive Player of the Year, All-NBA, as well as the MVP? So, I want to start with the one that I don't think he'll win. I think 2 out of the 3, yes, he will or can. But MVP, I don't believe he'll win. Right? Now, MVP is supposed to be the most valuable player, right? So, depending on how Wemby plays next season, it's very possible that he could deserve the MVP, and he may end up getting votes and be in the conversation, but actually winning it, we have seen over the years, you usually have to be one of the top teams in the league, right? Like, usually if you're going to win MVP, you got to be at worst top 3 to 4 team in your respective conference, right? Like, I don't think the San Antonio Spurs are going to be there. Now, I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm not going to say and put, limitations on what could potentially happen, right? Like, I think Victor Wembanyama last season was arguably a top 15 player in the league. If he takes some real strides and ends up moving into the top 10 or maybe even like the top 7, then, watch out, right? I wouldn't be shocked if next season, given just the natural growth and progression of him as a player, and then you also add in Chris Paul and how easy Chris Paul is going to make things for Victor Wembanyama. I just look at it and I go, man, like I could see Wemby, who was, hair shy from 22 points a game. Like, I think Chris Paul can get him another 8 to 10 points, right? Like, so I think he can genuinely be a 30-point a game guy. He's going to be, in my opinion, the best defensive player in the league, which, I mean, he was last year by pretty much every metric. And we'll talk about the Defensive Player of the Year side here in a moment, but I don't think the Spurs are going to be good enough to where he's actually going to win it. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think anyone would be majorly surprised just with all the hype and attention that Wemby draws and brings, and and then also you get voter fatigue from a lot of teams, or a lot of, the voters, right? But I think somebody like Luka or, somebody, if one of these teams can be, Anthony Edwards, if he's killing it and, Minnesota's the 1 seed or SGA or something, I could see one of them probably getting it over Victor. I think Victor would have to be, like I said, basically 30 points a game, best defense player in the league, and the Spurs would have to be a top 4 seed at worst, and then I think he could get it. I think that they will be, kind of in that hunt for the play-in, right? I think that they'll be, around a play-in team. Maybe could they sneak in and maybe be the 6th seed? It's always possible. You never know. But I just think realistically speaking, and the Spurs, they're not expecting to win an NBA championship this year. They're not expecting to be a top 4 team in the league this year, right? This is development year. They went and got Chris Paul and signed Chris Paul so he could be a mentor and help develop the young guys, right? And develop the guards and stuff. And, Stephon Castle and, Devin Vassell and things like that. They went and got Harrison Barnes to give him that 3-and-D wing that can help with, a Keldon Johnson, a Harrison Ingram that they just picked up, right? To me, this feels like that development year. You got the year where you got, you won the lottery, you literally ended up getting Victor, pair him with Devin Vassell, got this nice young team, kind of let them get through the year and get their hiccups, and then you go get a guy like a Chris Paul, you go get a guy like a Harrison Barnes, get some veteran leadership in the locker room, get some guys that are not just there to be on the sidelines and help mentor, but actually can make an impact and win some games. I think that they're more focused on, hey, let's start getting these young guys to start taking some leaps and some strides and the next step, rather than hey, let's go win a championship this year, right? I just think that they need that other bona fide star. But again, you never know, right? Victor, like I said, moves in that top 10, top 7 range. Maybe Devin Vassell takes a leap and maybe he gets to, a 25 a game guy, something like that, right? Like, you never know. So I'm not going to put entire limitations on it, but I do think it's very unlikely. But Defensive Player of the Year, right? I believe Victor should have won it last year. I believe that either you should have given it to Anthony Davis or you should have given it to Victor Wembanyama. Those guys were the 2 best defensive players in the league by every metric, every standard. Anthony Davis has been the best defensive player in the league every year since basically he came in the league, and it's criminal that he doesn't have a Defensive Player of the Year award. However you feel about the Lakers, however you feel about Anthony Davis, there's no denying that he should have at least one minimum, right? And the fact that he doesn't have one and probably never will is just blasphemy, right? But I thought if you weren't going to give it to Anthony Davis, you should have given it to Victor Wembanyama. I mean, he led the league in stocks. I mean, the guy was the best defensive player, again, by like every metric, the eye test, all this stuff. I mean, I've never seen players have a clear drive and lane to the basket, and Victor's not even like, he's just in the area. At times he's not even paying attention, and players will pull out because they're afraid that Victor's going to come in and have a block party, right? Like, because he's just so long, lengthy, and so good at recovering, right? Like Rudy Gobert, I feel like it was very similar to the Marcus Smart winning the Defensive Player of the Year award, right? Like that year, Marcus Smart wasn't the best defensive player by like any metric, right? In many categories, it wasn't even like top 10. So it was like, why did he win Defensive Player of the Year? And even like sports media and stuff were like, oh, he won it because the Celtics were the best team. Well, time out. Isn't Defensive Player of the Year a Defensive Player award? Right? Why are we giving players awards for team accomplishments? Right? Like, if Rudy Gobert was on, Detroit, would Rudy have won Defensive Player of the Year? No. Right? It's just Minnesota was the best defensive team in the league, and Rudy was like the anchor of that defense. Same thing with Marcus Smart, right? Like, Boston was the best defensive team in the league that year, but Marcus Smart wasn't even the best defensive player on his team that year. But Marcus Smart was the like leader and the foundation to that defense. So he ended up getting the award by default, essentially, right? Which, it bothers me. Again, if we're going to give individual awards, it should be an individual award. Just like, again, like the MVP award, right? Like, again, it's supposed to be who's the most valuable player, right? Like, so which team is most valuable to their team? Which, you could argue pretty much every star is the most valuable to the team, but like, there are differentiating factors, right, that I think go into it that they just don't take into account. It's just like, okay, who's the best player on the best team this year? All right, that's the guy that wins defensive player or wins the MVP. Right? Okay, fine. Right? Because he's the leader of the best team. But like, Defensive Player of the Year, it's like, again, shouldn't it go to who was the best defensive player that year? Not like who was one of the best defenders on the best team, best defensive team, right? Because it's not like if you took Rudy Gobert off the team, Minnesota's terrible defensively, right? Like, you look at Anthony Davis, for example. Lakers with Anthony Davis, just Anthony Davis, are a middle-of-the-pack defensive team. Lakers without Anthony Davis are the worst defensive team in the league, right? Like, there's not much more value than that, right? Like, so it's the same thing. Like, Wemby, Spurs are not very good defensively, but with Wemby, they're actually pretty good defensively, right? Like, his impact on the defensive side is ridiculous. So I do think, though, that the Spurs will win that. I think, I mean, even Wemby said himself, right? Like, enjoy your Defense Player of the Year award because it's the last one you're going to win. I'm coming for the rest of them, right? And I do believe him when he said that. I do believe that he's going to win multiple Defense Player of the Year awards. I mean, there's talks about him already being potentially the best defensive player ever before it's all said and done. And I don't think that that's crazy to think about. I don't think that that's crazy to believe that that could happen. But, you know, we'll see in that regard. But I do think Defensive Player of the Year, I think it's Wemby's to lose. And then lastly, All NBA. I think that that is about the most likely award or position he could be in, period. Like, I would be shocked if he's not on an All NBA team next year. Right now, I'm not necessarily saying he's going to be on the All NBA first team. Again, I don't think that that's impossible, but I do think that he'll be at least on, you know, the third team or something like that. I think if he's not, it's just inexcusable, right? Assuming you got to keep in mind he's got to play 65 games. Like, there's, you know, criterias and milestones he has to hit in order for that to happen. But I do believe he'll do all those things, right? I do believe he will be that 65 game a year guy, and I do think he'll come in and, you know, I think he'll have that type of just defensive impact for sure. I think he'll offensively, like I said, take some strides, even if he's not 30 a game. I think it's not unlikely he's, you know, 23 to 25 a game, right? And then, you know, between both sides of the basketball, I think the Spurs will be in the high. Like, I think it's about as good as gold that he'll be on an All NBA team, right? I think he'll be all defense. I think he'll win Defensive Player of the Year. I think he'll be All NBA. But as far as the MVP goes, that's the one I'm like, probably not going to happen. Most likely. At least that's the one like I wouldn't bet on, personally. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think, like, yes, he's not winning the MVP, but Defense Player of the Year, All NBA, definitely. Do you think, like, no, he's going to win all three? Do you think, like, no, he'll just win Defense Player of the Year, not All NBA, or just All NBA and not the other two? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.